The first group of refugees in Greece is relocated in Luxembourg, and the EU Commissioner in charge of Economic and Monetary Affairs talks to us on the ways Europe is to tackle the problem for the next 3 years. I'm Fariba Mavadat, and this is Europe Weekly. Now, while the number of migrants to Europe has reached close to 700,000, the first group of refugees in Greece is relocated in Luxembourg, though still awaiting decision on their asylum application. Their number, 30 people. 6 families altogether, a drop in the ocean as described by the Foreign Minister of Luxembourg. Have a look at this report.
6 families from Syria and Iraq board a plane leaving Athens for Northern Europe. They're the first refugees to be relocated from Greece to Luxembourg under an EU plan agreed in September. The group posed for selfies with the European Parliament President Martin Schulz and the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. The Greek people know what it means to be a refugee, he says. Let's not forget the fact that Greece is facing a humanitarian crisis. Despite this, even the people in the islands have opened their arms to help. The repatriation is part of a 780 million 2-year EU plan to help frontline border nations who've borne the brunt of arrivals during this year's migrant crisis. It's estimated 580,000 people have entered Greece from Turkey this year alone.
While Europe's expecting nearly 3 million refugees on its soil within the next 2 years, the Commission's busy figuring out the financial impact of it, both in terms of costs and in view of migrants' economic contribution to Europe's economy. We talked to Pierre Moscovici, EU's Commissioner for Economic and Financial Affairs, just back from his 2-day visit to Greece, expressing his satisfaction with the country's reform process.
I believe more in incentives than in sanctions.
I know, but the thing is that closing borders...
We need to incentivize, we need to convince, we need to go on with the...
So what are the factors that could now derail the economy from recovery? And, of course, if you are satisfied.
In that complex world, with geostrategical tensions, with difficulties here and there, we are solid. But it's not only satisfying to be solid. We need to be more than that. We need to be more dynamic. Unemployment is decreasing, but what we see is that it decreases too slowly, or that the figures remain too high, and that at the same time it varies from country to country. So it is an incentive for countries to continue reforming, especially in the field of labour market, because it's absolutely a key driver to get back to growth at a stronger pace and to have better results on employment.
The only member state that is still under recession is Greece. You just came back from the country. Do you think that they are in a good way to reform and to the implementation of the program or not?
It's clear that today the cooperation with the Tsipras government, I met Mr. Tsipras for more than an hour, is really good. It's better than I would say ever in the past years with previous governments. It was not the case in the beginning of the year, but now, since July, we're in a solid cooperation and very positive. There are still some reforms to be first adopted, the first set of milestones and the second set of milestones, and also to be implemented. But I think that the Greek government and Greek people must be conscious that if reforms go on, growth will be back.
Do you think that there is a possibility of getting results within the deadline so that, for example, the banks can be recapitalized before the end of this year, and of course the opening of the debt discussion?
It's not that it is possible, it's necessary. And the message I gave in Athens was we must conclude the first review of the program before the end of the year. We must conclude the bank recapitalization process before the end of the year. If we do both things correctly, then we'll also be capable of starting the discussion on debt, which I know is a major issue for the Greek government and for the Greek people.
Another issue that could have an impact on the European economy, and of course it influences as well the countries hit by the crisis, the refugee crisis. Is the Commission positive that what some Member States have already asked about a kind of flexibility in the Stability Pact and Growth?
President Juncker said that we would respect the Stability and Growth Pact, but that there could be exceptional circumstances that has to be checked with the governments and countries which are concerned, and then we could take also exceptional decisions.
Could you be more specific about that?
I can't.
You can't. Okay, you are in discussions with Eurogroup or with other...
We share the same view. Jeroen Dijsselbloem also expressed himself in the same direction, but we need to work on data, and we expect data from the concerned countries and governments.
So do you agree with what Mr. Dijsselbloem proposed recently about the countries that are not very keen to accept and receive these refugees, to cut some of the funds?
First, we've got to see the global positive impact of the refugee crisis. No, it's not in the long term. We are checking that as soon as 2015, 16 and 17. This impact is slightly positive by 0.2, 0.3% of GDP, and it's of course higher in the welcoming countries. And that's what our forecasts say. We need to have a global approach of that, and we'll discuss that as well in the Commission and in the Council.
Okay, Mr. Commissioner, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A year ago this month, a couple of whistleblowers leaked a document that showed the tiny Duchy of Luxembourg had helped giant multinationals dodge their due taxes. And whose neck should go on the chopping board? The two whistleblowers who leaked the document. There was a demonstration in Brussels protesting against the prosecution.
1 year after Lux-leaks, what about the whistleblowers? The question these protesters are asking today. Antoine Deltour, former PricewaterhouseCoopers employee, and French journalist Edouard Perrin face hefty fines and prison sentences for their role in Lux-leaks. We ask the EU to act globally in the protection of these whistleblowers. Today these people are less and less protected, and this means that we're going to have fewer people ready to denounce these kind of scandals. The whistleblowers' information is the information used by the Commission in its investigative work. We need these people. Corporations like Starbucks and Apple are more and more in the eye of the Commission, as the recent work of Competition Commissioner Margrethe Vestager has shown. But for these activists, more needs to be done.
They say that they're creating transparency, but there's no new information to the citizens. We're still not allowed to know what multinational corporations are paying in taxes. And the companies are also still not paying more taxes. So there's a very long way to go before this problem is solved.
After decisions on Starbucks and Fiat, the European Commission could soon go after Microsoft and Kraft, according to Dutch newspaper Trouw. But the Commission has yet to confirm.
The European Consumer Organization has warned that authorities have not only failed in addressing the sources of contaminated horse meat sold in 2013 in place of other meat in Europe, but have also ignored all kinds of irregularities going on in presenting meat products to the unsuspecting consumer. Maeve McMahon reports.
Certain meat-based foods sold in supermarkets in the European Union are not properly labelled. That's what the Brussels-based consumer lobby group, the European Consumers Organisation, have said. In light of the horsemeat scandal, they carried out tests in 7 EU member states, including the UK. Their report, Close Up on the Meat We Eat, suggests confusing names, incomplete labels, and illegal food additives are evident in a range of meat-based foods.
In Belgium, for example, there is this speciality which is called filet américain. So you think that you're eating raw beef, but it might be that you're eating raw pork. And this is, of course, something that is totally unacceptable from the consumer perspective.
For food policy expert Camille Perrin, it is also the responsibility of the consumer to check exactly what they're buying.
As consumer, we have to check the label because there are many tricks that food manufacturers can employ to make you believe you're buying something whereas you are buying something else. And now our role as BEUC is to bring the result of our members to the European Commission. We act as a kind of megaphone to bring all these results they gather to that test to the EU level and make sure that the problems they identify are addressed and tackled.
But with the financial crisis and cutbacks in areas like food inspections and mystery shopping, the message of the European Consumers Organisation may fall on deaf ears in EU member states.
And in the week to come, Pierre Moscovici might have expressed his satisfaction with the Greek reforms, but the decision on granting a tranche of financial help to the Greeks will remain with the Eurozone finance ministers meeting Monday next week. For the rest of the week, a 2-day EU summit will be held in Malta, where on Wednesday and Thursday morning the leaders will discuss migration issues with their African counterparts, and on the afternoon of Thursday the summit will be limited to informal talks among the European leaders. And on Saturday, the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani will visit Italy as the first stop on his European tour after the recent nuclear agreement. Have a relaxing week.